Hello, my name is Carol Mae Whitttick, and welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. And I want to say thank you for joining me right at the beginning of the series of Her Conversations. This is the very first episode. And what I felt would be really nice to do is, before I bring any of the guests on, would be to have just a mini episode where I'm introducing myself to you and also telling you a little bit more about what Her Conversations is all about. So firstly, me, I'm a musician, I'm a writer, I'm a creator of all kinds of things. I'm interested in so much: spirituality, yoga, food, health in any kind of way, conspiracy theories even as well. But I just like to have, like I've always had, a slightly to the left view of life, and I have always been interested in people who've seen things ever so slightly differently, because I felt that they have, or I've always resonated with something about them within that as well. And Her Conversations really has come about simply because I can sense that there is a change, and there's a change within females, there's a change in the world, and I just wanted to kind of bring to the fore my contribution to that change. So if we look at the title, it's called Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. And Her Conversations, her in itself is an acronym. I can't even say it now. So her is an acronym, and it stands for Higher Energetic Resonance. So HER, Higher Energetic Resonance. And what I mean by that is, have you ever been in a situation where you're just in that flow state? It gets described out a lot of the time, where everything is just falling into place, where you're in a good mood, you're in good health, you feel good about yourself, and it's almost as if luck is on your side. You have to think something and it just falls into place. And that's what I'm finding, is if we can get into that her state and talk about these higher energetic resonance states and ways to actually bring ourselves into that state. This is what this podcast series is about. So, tools for the awakening woman, and just kind of looking at the word awakening. In my mind, awakening just means coming awake, for want of a better phrase, really. Coming out of a slumber, coming out of what I feel and perceive to be almost like a hypnotism that us as females have been under for as long as I've known, and probably even before that. We only have to look out into the world and we can see the messages that are very strongly forced into our favour from the moment that we actually become aware of them, in terms of, like, you marry Prince Charming, the fairy tale, and then when it comes to kind of body image and what our relationships should be like, and when we should have children, and whether we should get married or have a career or this, and there's so many conflicting messages that it seems it's very difficult within that for you to take time for yourself and actually work out who you are, because these messages are so strong, and then they get reinforced by your peer group and society around you. So we're very good at policing each other, in terms of anyone who wants to step out of the mold may not always feel it's right and safe for them to do, but they always have this kind of yearning within them. So I've always felt that I've been one of those kind of people who's just wanted something a little bit different out of life, and I've not always known the ways to go about it. So these are these tools for the awakening women, the women that I'll be speaking to over the course of this series, come from all different walks of life. So I've got psychic mediums, I've got astrologists, I've got women who work with essential oils, who are nutritionists, who are spiritual teachers, who work with numerology, because I feel that these skills and these special gifts have been so long marginalized and seen as woo-woo and not real, and yet there are so many of them, of these women around. And when I was putting the podcast in itself together, initially I was just thinking, well, who am I going to ask, and is anybody going to say yes to me? I had real doubts, if I'm being really honest about it, about how I was really going to go ahead and get everything organised. But When I started to look at the women that I knew in my circle, in my friends, and in social media, people that I'd been connected to through groups and events and so forth that I'd been to over the years, I realised that I knew these women anyway. And it showed me that I'd made a change in my life as well, because I was having conversations and just treating them as normal. Whereas when I started to actually speak to them individually, it became very clear that they all needed a voice. You know, they'd come from a situation where they felt that maybe they were the odd one out because they had these skills that were so unconventional and needed a way of speaking out unedited. And I want for every woman that comes on to the conversations, you will feel and you will notice that they speak from the heart and they speak freely, and as deep as they want to go down the rabbit hole is as deep as I want them to go. I want this to be a real conversation without any judgment. I want somebody to be pushing the paradigms, because I feel that's what we all need right now.
And when you stop fighting yourself and you just realize that you can be nice to yourself, you don't have to berate yourself to get anywhere. You don't have to, follow these old patterns of behavior. You can change.
Anyone who listens to this who's had any form of cancer diagnosis or serious illness diagnosis, it really is a big wake-up call. And it made me realize that I probably didn't really know who I was. And I knew at some level that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I kind of knew that I had certain things that when I did them, they made me feel good. Probably your higher energetic vibration. But I'd always sort of put that to one side.
I feel her when I'm working with clients, when I've taken the time to clear myself and tune in and show up in service. Then I feel that I am her. It's not about me. It's about holding a space and showing up and, for the energy that's present in a higher vibrational way.
From my heart and from my gut, I just felt, I knew this is what I was supposed to be doing. I knew that my purpose was very much about sharing the natural health message. And I made a decision that this is where I was really going to put my energy.
We have a knowing. We have the answers right within us. So it's just about sort of tuning into that and feeling it. And again, it's such a personal thing. Everyone has a different story, but I find that even with the biggest decisions that I've had to make and it's not about the mind. It's about the body. It's about tuning in to that guidance system.
Whether you like it or not, you chose this, and there's a reason. So yeah, just knowing that you're more than what this world has told you, and to give yourself permission to explore that inner voice and know that there's nothing wrong or crazy about that, because your inner voice may be something very different than the life that you're leading.
So each of the women will be coming on, and I'll be publishing a podcast a week. And one of the things that will tie all of them together will be, I'll be asking questions to everybody, the same questions to everybody. And I thought it would be really nice as an introductory to answer those questions myself. So you could get to know a little bit about me and then kind of in turn get to know each of the women. So one of the questions I'll be asking all of the women who come onto Her Conversations is, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel at your most her? And for me to answer that question, the way that I would answer that is, the way that I feel at my most her is when I'm being creative. And my creativity takes many forms. So it can be writing a song, writing a blog post. I'm working on a book, so writing that, playing music. It could be cooking. It could be creating websites, making graphics. It could be finding the perfect outfit to go to the perfect event. So my creativity comes from internal expression made real. That's when I feel at my highest energetic resonance. That's my answer to that question. And another of the questions I'll be asking the women is, what is the best piece of advice any woman has ever given to you? And my answer to that question is, My name, as I introduced myself, is Carol Mae Whitttick, but I had a nickname, and my mum gave me a nickname, and my nickname was Bloom. And I always take that now as my advice. To the best advice that she ever gave me was the name that she gave me, the name that she nicknamed me and would call me Bloom, because within it, it's given me some advice. It's Bloom. You know, you can't say any more than that. And that's the piece of advice that I think I carry with me in all ways. It's like go into a situation and bloom into that situation. I realise it now. I haven't always, but I'm really going to take it on, and I'm really going to bloom into many and any of the things that I take forward and do in my life going forward. The next question that I'm asking everybody is, which female do you think represents higher energetic resonance? And somewhat unfairly, I struggle to pin it down to one woman, which is not really fair, really, because I'm asking everyone to do exactly the same thing. However, I couldn't really give it just to one person, but it's quite similar to when I feel at that her state. And for when I see any woman being unashamed, unabashed, courageous, powerful, strong, creative, and just going forward into the world and just doing whatever it is she feels in her heart to do and making a difference. And making a difference doesn't mean that she is going and kind of changing it in a larger community. It could be just going into the situation within her home, the way that she's raising her children, the way that she adorns herself, the moves that she makes in terms of business, and just doing that in such a subtle and powerful and elegant and feminine and passionate way. That's what really makes me look at a woman and go, I want to be like that. You are a representation of higher energetic resonance. And so my final question to everyone will also be, what's your favourite self-care ritual or practice? And for me, I've very recently come to do Kundalini yoga. So I've been doing yoga on and off for about 10-11 years, various different forms, and I happened upon Kundalini yoga about a year ago. So we're talking about July 16, and I found it by chance, quote unquote, but it just really getting into the practice, and some of the studying that I'm doing is now requires me to get up and do a sadhana practice every morning, which when I explain it to you might sound a little bit extreme, but it means that I need to get up every morning and practice from 4 a.m. And after getting over the initial, what am I doing, this crazy time in the morning, that time in the morning there is very few people around, and the energy in that moment is so pure and so connected. It just feels like once you get into the practice, and a lot of the time when I'm practicing, it can last anything from 90 minutes to 2 hours, but it just doesn't feel like that once I really get plugged into what I'm doing. And when I don't do it, I really notice. And recently I had a little bit of a back injury. I'd kind of like bruised my back, and I just really couldn't move at all. It was really uncomfortable to even walk. And for about a week or so, it was very difficult for me to do some of the deeper practices, and definitely some of the deeper breathing practices. And I really noticed by day 7 and 8 that I felt like I was losing connection with something that I'd only really just started to get to know, a different part of myself that when I was tuned into that, and when I kind of went and plugged into that first thing in the morning, my day was completely different. So the first time that I was then able to get back into that, I noticed so much of a difference. I literally went skipping down the road. So for me, that is my favourite self-care ritual and practice, and also because it's imperative for me to kind of move forward with all the things that I'm doing. This podcast, I feel, would not exist if I didn't have that practice. It's given me not only the ideas, and I'm always having ideas, but then also the courage to follow through and kind of get over myself, where I would have probably have talked about the idea for a few years until it have faded away in the dust as well. But it's got me to kind of jump on and embody that her resonance and take action. And then what I ask all the women is, what's next for you? So what's next for me is going to be another episode of Her Conversations with lots of different amazing guests, and some of the conversations will be more of an interview style, and then some of the conversations will be more of a real conversation where it will just be two women, myself and somebody else, just talking about something that we've experienced and talking about it from someone who's come from it, and not necessarily wanting to get to any conclusions, but just opening the door a little bit, so there's less shame, there's less hurt, so that anyone who listens in can kind of understand or hear a little bit more about anyone who's experienced things that may be a little bit taboo. So these could cover things from grief, from emotional, sexual abuse. It could cover depression, mental illness. These are all of the things that I really want to speak on, and I'll be speaking to different women over the coming weeks about those things. And it's just about hearing other women talk about their experiences, that maybe you'll be able to forward that particular episode to somebody that you know, that you feel might get some benefit out of it, or it might just kind of open your eyes a little bit more to what other women are going through that they may not even feel comfortable in opening up about. So I want to be the conduit for that. And then the final question is then, how can we further connect to you? And there are a number of ways that you can get in contact with me online. Firstly, you can go to my website, and that's carolmaewhittick.com, and that will be www.carolmae and Whittick, WHITTICK.com. Alternatively, you can find me under the same name on Facebook, search the same name on Twitter and on Instagram, or for brevity, my Twitter handle is Casmic, and that's CAZMICK. And I'm really getting into the whole Instagram thing, so I'll be posting a lot more lives and kind of stories behind the scenes as well, so you'll get to know a little bit more about me, but also what's happening as the Her Conversation podcast and project comes to the fore and is birthed into the world. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining me on this first episode. Feel free to come to my website and subscribe to the newsletter. That will give you the opportunity to kind of find out more. I send out a newsletter that also has a blog post in there as well. Alternatively, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, then you're also free to subscribe to that as well, so each subsequent episode will come directly to your device. So until the next time, thank you so much for listening, and look out for the next one. Thank you.